good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, do you want me to are you good?
No, we're
Hey,
good.
everybody. All right. Welcome, 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 everyone. We got Zach. No, this direction. No, man, I always get it. I don't do the camera stuff right. There's Zach right there.
He's ready. This
Welcome.
is
We
Zach.
have, let
Hi,
me put
Zach.
up the first post. All right. So allegedly, they're having trouble streaming to X. This may have issues on X. They'll keep us updated. They'll keep trying. So right now we've got no X connection, but that's where everybody is with us. So great. Awesome. Well, I guess we'll have to keep going from here, my friend. Zach, welcome,
No.
man. How are you?
Hey, welcome. So,
So, what's going on, man?
lots of things are going on. Ross Ulbricht is free. He actually
Yes.
did it.
Yes. Can you believe that?
I'm ecstatic on that one.
I am.
So,
I am too. So let's start with that. So first of all, today is just we threw this together. We heard that Rex going to have some surgery. We heard that he's going to be under the knife and he's going to have some stuff
mhm,
happen. That guy, look, whether you agree with his mind or not, the guy has a brilliant mind. He's written like
he
12
does.
books, and I don't think the guy is incapable of changing his mind considering he was a Marxist. So like I think if we brilliant ideas need to be expressed. You know what I mean? The more that's the diversity that I think we need in this world is the ideas, right?
I mean, he could change his mind. I
He
mean,
could.
he
That's what
did
I'm
go
saying.
from a
He's
Marxist to a
capable.
libertarian. Yeah, so he's
Right.
definitely
That's what I'm saying. He's
capable.
capable of that. So we
So,
want those ideas, right? Because maybe he can give us a nugget of something that we're missing that's a little piece of something else, right? So like what's happened is
mhm,
it's been great because like how I heard about this is Chase Oliver puts out a tweet and speaks of Rectenwald. Now, Reck and Chase were opponents for the
mhm.
position for president. And Chase won. Hey, look, outside of all that politics stuff, we don't wish harm on anyone. It was a beautiful message that Chase did, so I thought we'd throw this together. And I have Dr. Rectenwald's Give Send Go up top there. So feel free if you have a couple bucks and want to donate, that'd be awesome. There's already 10 people on here. So jump on the chat, ask us questions because we have no idea what we're talking about. But
We're
we're
just
gonna start
winging
with
it.
Ross, right? We're winging it, my
Oh,
friend.
yeah.
We're gonna start with Ross.
Yeah.
So, man, you've been a libertarian probably way longer than I have in like actual thought. I probably always flirted with it, but man,
I don't
you're
know.
deep and wide. So you how long have you known about Ross? What are your thoughts? What's going through your head, man?
I pretty much knew a little bit about Ross and his case and everything, honestly, just because of the crypto. Mostly my buddy Andrew, who we host a pod with. That's how I pretty much learned about Ross. And the fact that he spent like a decade in prison with two life sentences for building a marketplace, there's a lot going deeper into that. Like,
Yeah.
y- I mean, as far as like libertarianism, I don't really consider myself a libertarian, actually. I'm just a straight
Mm.
up anarchist. I went from honestly, like when I was a kid, I probably like a teenager, like me and my buddy would like draw like swastikas and SS bolts on our hands, like give ourselves some handmade tattoos. Like I was like into the Nazi occult, dude. Like I didn't care. Like I didn't care about life. I didn't care about other people. Like I was
You're
straight up like
like a Nazi
into
goth,
I was
like back in the
basically a
day. Like,
Nazi goth without the goth. So like, I was just straight
well,
up an outcast. So, but a libertarianism though, like probably I learned about Ron Paul in 2009, 2010. Ended up reading probably somewhere on my bookshelf somewhere. I don't know where. It's
yeah,
hidden
how
at
many
this
books do
point.
we have, right?
Exactly, way too many. But yeah, like I read In the Fed, and then that got me on the like Murray Rothbard. And then Andrew ended up linking me up with Lysander Spooner. And I started looking more
Hmm.
into Lysander Spooner. I'm like, hold on. I think I gravitate more to Lysander than anybody. So, and that was
You're like, what's
basically
this
my
new
journey right
thing?
there. Yeah, within the last couple years, I've learned a little bit more of like agorism, Samuel Edward Konkin, his agorist theory, his new libertarian manifesto, or left libertarian, as he likes to refer to himself as. So, and I've really looked into myself on that and saying, hold up, I sold drugs. I've done drugs. I've ran that street life. I was an agorist before I knew what agorism is, because that's basically agorism to a T on the negative effect. So,
Right.
so back to Ross, that's effectively what Ross Ulbricht did with Silk Road. Was he created a marketplace using the Tor network, um, that allowed for a voluntary exchange of all sorts of goods across it. It wasn't just drugs, and that was just the notorious part. So he created a marketplace that undercut the government, and he went down hard for it. Now, as far as like the other allegations with the supposed hit, kind of sounds more like it was a sting operation to take him down, and it wouldn't
Does
put
sound like they tried to pile some stuff up, right?
mhm. Like, whether
So
the guys that he was talking about were bots or informants or just straight feds in general, that's another story, but and that's I mean, we could go on that for days, just
yeah,
thinking
well,
about
that's
the
the thing,
truth.
man. I shared that weird, there was a cool thing, Victoria Skousen and Mark Skousen at Freedom
Mhm.
Fest. Lynn Ross's mother has been at Freedom Fest all these years, and I happened to go this year or last year, 2024, and I met her. I bumped
That's
into her
awesome.
outside, and I'm like, Excuse me, are you Lynn?" Like, I didn't know what to do because like, there's, like, famous people, but there's, like, famous people who, like, seek fame, and then there are famous people who have it, like, thrust upon them. And I
Mhm.
think she's just loves her son, and she's active, so she got
Yep.
fame thrust upon her. So, like, I asked her for a hug, so I she gave me a hug, and I did not ask for a selfie, because like, it just felt so out of place, you know what I mean? Like, because it wasn't
Mhm.
about that. It was just about seeing her and, like, getting her story from her was this
Yeah.
really beautiful moment, and now that we might be able to see them together at the next one would be pretty cool.
That'll be
And
awesome.
yeah, and I'm gonna
Uh,
share documentary that they did. It's on YouTube in Spanish, but you can pay for it. This one has Spanish subtitles, but it was something about the deep state. It's about Ross's thing, and I shared it with you guys in the thing. I didn't know if you had a chance to watch it yet, but it dissects it, where they basically throw all these charges at him. They use these extra charges to hold him in prison, and then they drop those charges right before they actually start the process. It's like, well, why was he held in prison for these things that you're not even going to charge him for, you know? And then just
mhm.
the crazy shenanigans that went about it. I mean, so for people who don't know, the guy basically built an Amazon, but only built the site. So let people talk to each other and trade goods, services.
Mhm.
Yes, things outside the government control. Yes,
Mhm.
probably not the best thing for everybody, whatever,
There
right?
was there
But at
was
least
one thing, one rule on it though, that could not be traded amongst the marketplace: child porn. As much as everybody wants to go to the well, that was being traded. No, that was not on that marketplace. It was the only illicit things would be like drugs, guns, probably some prostitutes, but that's consenting adult sex stuff. That's not child
yep.
pornography. But
Yeah,
that
if
was
it's
where you drew the line.
consensual and if it's a 101 and like end to end like sex work, like individual sex work, totally that's 2
Hmm.
consenting adults making a deal for a service. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally with you. I think the one guy like printed guns, right? He sold like a bunch of like 3D printed
something.
guns was one, and so
Hmm.
yeah, so but basically what happens is this: we are grown up under this guise of government, and we have a Department of Education, and they tell us how it is. And
Hmm.
until you look, it's only how they tell you it is. When you actually realize that it's nothing like what they tell you it is, if you just open your eyes, followed a little bit of, took a little different path, you'd find a very different life for you, you know? And to watch this happen is like everybody's like, "Oh, well, he sold drugs." And you're like,
W
and someone took them. Yeah?
exactly.
Like,
And
they
theoretically, he wasn't the one that did it. He wasn't selling
right,
the
and it
drugs. He just
right, and,
created the marketplace that other people were selling the drugs.
yeah,
So what?
and he got 2, 2 life sentences plus 40 years, 2 life sentences plus 40 years for
Mhm,
this, and you're sitting there going, now, you don't need to know who this guy is, but you're like, if we took an American citizen who created a website that other people did other stuff on that you don't agree with, how much punishment should that guy get for creating the thing? Like, I don't blame Ford for a drive-by shooting, nor do I blame the gun manufacturer for the drive-by shooting, right? Like, I
mhm,
don't blame Goodyear for the tires that were used in the, parade the guy who drove through the parade. You know what I mean? It's like, these are
mhm.
ridiculous things that are happening here.
Well,
So, alright.
that's like the bullshit rhetoric now. The gun manufacturers have to be held liable because somebody committed a mass shooting. It's like, no, they're not. It's their okay, sure. Their gun is used. No, the actions of one should not be the consequence of another.
Yeah. It's so crazy how they jump that, and it's like, I'll be honest with you, like, I come from the neocon side, so growing up, believed in government, America was good, and I still think America's the greatest country, so we're able to
Mhm,
speak against it, like, just that ability right now for us to talk pretty freely. It's not free, we know, but it's pretty darn decent that we get to kind of vent the valve a little bit, right? So, I mean, I just grew up like that, and I just thought Law& and Order was the way it goes. Like, someone like yourself, if I grew up, like, I would be, like, offended and, like, I'll be honest, disgusted by a druggie. It just wasn't a thing
mhm.
that we did, you know what I mean? We were stand-up straw people. So
Yeah,
wrong, such a wrong way to see the world because it was so narrow, and it got grayed as I got older, you know what I mean? And that was a beautiful thing.
mhm,
It started getting color and shade, and you start meeting people that are nothing like you, that are at the same place you are in life, just in a totally different way. And what's wrong with that? I started to realize, like, there's not one way to live.
mhm. No, I mean, I just like testing the waters. In Rebel, I was just a little I was a good kid up until I was like 12, and then all of a sudden I went a different path, and then by the time got into high school, my dad ended up becoming a full-time prosecutor, and then that's when I was starting to get really deep into the street stuff. So I was a rebel. My dad was a prosecutor, and I still
Oh,
did a
okay.
lot. Yeah, and I
So
still
there's
ended
kinda a
up
little bit of
getting
a blowback. You're like a little
pretty
Ron Paul blowback to your dad being a prosecutor?
yeah, a little bit. I think part of it, other things with my dad probably just because I was
Yeah.
raised effectively by a single mother. My dad was there. It's not like I didn't have both my parents. I did have both my parents, but he was never really in the picture. So part
Right.
of that was probably just rebelling on the fact that I just had mom really. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I never heard this story about you, so let's get into your origin story, man. It sounds fascinating to me. So you're a straight and narrow kid, you hit this puberty part where you rebel. How bad did it get? How bad would you say it got? Like,
uh,
any stories where you got away with, like, something you coulda died or something, just thinking you look back and go, "Man, how am I here?"
I mean, about the only thing I could say that I don't remember is one time I fell asleep. We were shit faced, drunk, and high, and I fell asleep in the shotgun of my own van, and I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, what the hell? What? Where are we? Why am I? I look out. I'm like, why am I at Kyle's? What? And find out I basically passed out, just messed up. There was a funny story where I guess I don't know. But I I don't even remember that night. I was so trashed, but yeah, that was there wasn't anything that I actually got into a danger mode, but I have been in other situations where me and my buddies did have to save and make sure that we got a couple of our friends to the hospital, or at least to their parents, so they could get to the hospital because of an overdose. So I've had a couple
Wow.
incidents where we actually had one of our friends ended up overdosing on us. So luckily, it wasn't anything at that point like strong like heroin, but it was like cortisone when we were like really, really young. And then
Right,
for the most part, just pretty much got deeper and deeper. But as deeper as like me and like I still got my I got a best friend named Zach as well. We've been ride or die forever. Me and
oh, that's
him, the
cool.
deeper, yeah, the deeper that we went in and got even worse in the drugs, the smarter we became to where we didn't put ourselves into a situation because like we got busted. He really got bad into it. He got bad into heroin. I was a big oxy head, and we just basically hustled and we didn't steal. We actually one thing that we made sure we didn't do, like it was like against our path to steal, unless it was like another junkie. But I mean, it
Speaking
was
of which,
that's yeah.
oh, check this out. You're talking about heroin and oxy. I just pulled this up because I didn't once again, like, we're doing this impromptu, and I wanna get back to your story for sure. But check this out. I'm gonna share the screen real quick because it's a new, I pulled up AP and Reuters, you know, how they like talking about stuff, and check this out. It looks like which one is it? Is this the one? There it is. Alright, there we go. So
Hmm.
Purdue Pharma, right? That's the one who the Sackler family, they're the ones who started the whole
Yep.
Oxy thing. Oh, the owners are to pay $7.4 billion in settlement, which I'm sure will get deferred or something like that, but there it is, man. So did you got caught up in part of this? I mean, for real? Like, is this what your neighborhood or your child like, kinda your neighborhood was like or
See,
Tulsa was like?
I'm different because like most people, you know how they go, they jump into it because they get
Yeah.
prescribed and then they get addicted,
Yeah,
then
like,
they
I get
go to the
it, like, grows
streets.
on it, but you were just a kid who started.
Yeah. Me, I was just a kid that just started. Actually, the first time I ever did drugs in my life, I started popping Xanax at the age of 15. First time I smoked a
Okay.
joint, I was 18. So the gateway drug thing, marijuana to big drugs, that's false.
Yeah, it's a false
So
thing. I can tell you
yeah.
100% that's false. 100%
Mhm.
I can tell you right now that that's false right now.
Exactly.
So okay, so you rebelled, you had some close call, you had a friend
Mhm,
OD, but they got through.
mhm.
So
Well, yeah,
where
I've had friends.
where did
I've
you wake
actually had
up?
a so where did I wake up?
Where did yeah, where did you go,
You
"Okay, man, I'm a little bit off course, I gotta straighten this shit out."
I mean, where I shoulda woke up was well, a little bit. I woke up kind of, but really I didn't because at 19, I've gotten in some trouble. Luckily, just like misdemeanor stuff. Wasn't getting in trouble with the hard stuff, but I went to jail, and from that point on,
Oh,
I
wow.
basically told myself I ain't ever going back to jail. But got deeper into becoming an addict after I got off PO and got out of all that, and I still kept on doing being a stupid little druggie.
Yeah,
So
but, well, we're all stupid little druggies at some point in our life, man.
exactly,
Everybody's got a
exactly.
drug, whatever it
Hmm.
is. We all got a vice. We're a slave to it in some weird way. We just gotta catch it
Yeah,
and manage it, right? So
yeah,
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
yeah.
Let's give a little grace here to people because kinda
Yep.
that's the point is like, we can't be all hardcore on this. This is like this is
Hmm.
real talk. These are people who are
Yeah.
hurting. It's a health thing.
Hmm.
It's actual health, you know?
It is. It is. And I mean, I say that it made me a little smarter though because like I never got busted ever again. And but the time that I kind of changed was like me and my buddy were going he actually was about to go into work. I actually just got off my job. We wanted to go score some dough and he was really fiending on like dope. And I never actually had done dope. Um, so we actually ran up to the city. He called up his dude, and we went to Avondale over at Cincinnati from our little enclave in suburban Indiana, and we got some dope. And soon as we're on our way to for me to go drop him off at work, he breaks it out. He's like, you want to try some of this?" I'm like, I probably shouldn't. I don't really want to because I'm like me, like I'm an addict, but I don't really want to jump in. I'm like, part of my mind was like, I really don't want to get myself deeper. Like I'm a smart addict, right? I
You
don't want
know
to go
yeah,
deep.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's kinda like the guy who takes if he's a dealer,
yeah,
right? Like, you don't take your own
hmm
product, but, like, at some point you
exactly,
go, "Ah, I can manage it maybe," or there's that one little hesitation, which I can
yep,
imagine you must get that, especially with your friend,
exactly.
you know what I mean? The kid you trust the most is like, "Here, bud," I get that.
Yeah, but eventually I'm like, "You know what? Fuck it." And, I do a little bump. I do a little bump of a tenth, of heroin, and we drive to his work. He ends up being late, ends up realizing he forgot, and by this point, we're hired and shit. He realizes he forgets his badge that he
Oh,
needed because he worked at Amazon,
okay.
so you need that, and, so he had to call his mom and let her and, so he tells her to meet him down there. We pull up. She's already there. Basically, she found out. She knew. Like she already knew. Like we went up to the city to go get dope. Luckily, to
Right.
this day, I don't think she knows that it was heroin. But but what happened was
I
like
thought it
from
was
that
weed or
point
something.
on, yeah, or pills or something. But she, from that point, I think she thought it was like pills because by that point, like his mom looked at him and she was pissed. The next day, she made sure that his ass went straight to the methadone clinic, which by this point we're 35, so that was like 15 years ago. He's
Right.
probably one of the most successful methadone clinic patients ever. Like he hasn't done anything. If he's still, I don't think he's going anymore, but he was on the lowest dose. Like within 5 years, he was on the lowest dose, and
Oh, wow.
so but he's probably one of the few that actually is successful with that program because really it's just the government's drug pusher. That's really all methadone is. And I
Yeah, it's
looked
just a
at I took
replacement, right? It's like a
that's all it is.
pharmaceutical company's replacement, like Oxy was a pharmaceutical company's replacement of heroin, like, duh.
Yep, yep. So, so I took that. I'm like, oh shoot. This was like the next day when he texts me up and tells me this, like, this shit just got real. This might get real. So I pretty much kind of looked in back in my mind because back in my mind, I really was I was already thinking I'm like I need to get out of this. Like I need to stop. So
You had voices already calling in the
I
back of your
already had
head.
voice. Yeah, like it was almost
You're
like
you're out
God,
of
man.
prison, you're still
Yeah.
having a challenge in life, it's not going
Mm-hmm.
100%, and you're not getting out of it even
Mm-hmm.
though you're getting more well, it is wiser in a weird way because it's
Yeah.
experience. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you grow to learn these things because it's not
Mhm.
like you can learn that in a book. You
No.
learn managing your self-regulation can't be done by reading someone's text about how to do it. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? You kinda gotta it's a trial by fire.
Mm-hmm. So, like, yeah, and, like, honestly, like, back in my mind, like, I honestly from this point on, like, reason why I always wear this is, like, I think God was constantly talking to me, telling me, like, "No, this is not what your life is about, like, this is you're meant for something, like, you always gotta find, like, whether you're religious or not, there's always something that pulls us, like, you're meant for this life, there's something there's a goal that you gotta hit before you're done, so what is that goal? You got to figure that out. So basically, from that point on, he's going to the methadone clinic. He's getting clean. He's going the hard route, being forced to go that direction. And me, I just like I cold turkey. Just
Cold
stop
turkey, yeah.
doing pills, stop doing everything. I went through my little withdrawal stage, and like from there point, months later, I'm like clean as a whistle. Like I didn't even smoke weed anymore. Like I don't think the last time
Wow.
yeah, last time I smoked weed was probably like at the age of like 25, and that was
Oh,
just
wow.
dude just came back from Colorado when they just passed the made it legal, and he had some
Right.
really good
Legal,
fun. I'm like,
right.
you know what? I am gonna try that.
And you do know it's not a gateway. You're kinda like you
No,
already had that experience.
yeah,
It's not like it drew you in anything heavier. It was
Yeah,
the heavy
exactly.
stuff that drew you into heavier stuff,
Mm,
not the light stuff.
yeah, so, like, I had my little incense where, like, everybody relapses. I did heroin a second time, I mean,
I
down the
I
road.
okay, tell me about that experience because what I hear is people really make that like a live and die mistake is they get off the drug and then they the
They
first
go
time they take it is like the
yeah,
dosage that they did when they got
yeah,
off it, not like a
yeah,
starter dosage again. Did
mhm.
you have that experience yourself or did you like how did that work for you?
I didn't have that experience actually, and I
Oh,
think it
okay.
was probably because it was, like, well, it was probably, like, months, maybe even, like, a year after, so I mean, and it wasn't like bunk. It wasn't bunk
Yeah.
anything with like it was straight fire. Like the people I knew like could get fire stuff. Like it wasn't cut with anything bullshit that I mean that's what kills you. But
Right. Right.
like the
And
as
that's the
far
other
as
thing,
like
it's funny, like, we talk about that thing with Ross, right? Like,
mhm
the alcohol prohibition, first of all,
mhm
you're making it in your bathtub, where's any quality control there? And
mhm
then in addition to that, the government's poisoning alcohol to get you to stop drinking it, right?
yeah
Like, it's how
yeah
drugs
right
work. Like,
yeah
the cream rises to the top. Somebody who sells a horrible product is not going to be able to do it. They're just not.
mm-mm,
You know what I mean? It
mm-mm,
won't let them. The whole way the review system works, I mean, think about it. It was like it was brilliant in that, you
mhm.
know? Alright,
That's
so
how a market
please continue.
works.
So
Yeah.
we're on, doing a Rectenwald fundraiser today. Give, Send, Go is at the bottom right there. Check it out. Meanwhile, we got Zach, and I'm giving Zach the rundown. I'm trying to shake him down, get his, history so I can use it against him later. We got north of
That's
30
exactly
people
what
on.
this is.
Thank you for joining. Yeah, I'm trying to get you, locked down. No, I'm fascinated because like, we have 2 different lives. I mean, I
Mhm.
knew of people who lived like or, who had different experiences for sure,
Mhm.
but
Hey,
I
man.
well, hearing
I
hearing you go
I
through, like,
used to
kinda like
hustle. Yeah,
total
going
roller
up.
coaster, because
Yeah.
you were good, and then you had challenges, then you straightened out, and then you got back, and then, so
Mhm.
alright, so now you got your buddy, he's recovered, you go and try to take it again, but you're like, "Nothing, it doesn't hook you again, nothing, that second
No, it
time?"
doesn't. Because I think part of the I mean, the high was great both times since it was so far out. Like, like, my experience, honestly, I literally, like I just went home and just passed out and had the best sleep of my life. That's my experience.
I've heard I've heard it's like a kiss from an angel, like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't wanna know, but that's what I've heard, and it's like,
It's
God, that sounds real
you
tempting to wanna
start
try
yeah.
it.
Yeah, dude, you start wondering, like, you know the history, like, the opium dens where they'd smoke and they'd have to lay down, like, that's what it feel like, "Holy
Right, and if it's
this is the
pure,
best."
right, like, obviously like, not GMO'd and not, like, chemicalized, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's pretty crazy.
Or
Yeah,
not,
so,
not
okay, so you get so you're clean, and do you mind if I ask how old you are now?
oh, I'll be 36 in May, so I'm
36,
almost
alright, man, happy
36,
birthday.
so yeah,
Oh,
so
almost 36. Dude, I'm
oh, but
50, man.
that's not old.
It's when you wake up in the morning, it feels old.
Hey, I'm
Alright,
saying it's
so
not old now, and then I'll turn 50, I'm like, "I'm old, man. Everything
so tell me
hurts."
about tell me about your neighborhood, man. So, are you in the same area that you grew up in, or
I live further out, closer to the country now. So,
Oh, okay.
where I lived, it was a typical run-of-the-mill suburbia. It's where I grew up.
What did
Nothing
you say,
special.
suburbia of Cincinnati, or which city?
Outside of Cincinnati, like,
Okay, because I was
yeah, a little
Philadelphia,
town
so
called Greendale. So,
okay, very cool.
yeah, I mean, nothing special. I mean,
One of my favorite
just
movies is Airborne, if you could believe it. Do you know
one of
which
my
one I
favorite movies one of my favorite movies is Air Bud.
Air Bud, the dog. You know the
Airborne.
movie
I'm trying
Airborne?
to think Airborne, actually. I should know that movie. I'm such a at one point, I was such a connoisseur.
It's a rollerblade movie that has Seth Green in it
Oh,
and Jack
I need
Black.
to
I'll send it to you. Dude dude, let's do
I'll
that. We'll
have
do a Discord. We'll watch it together. You will love it. It's, like, all about Cincinnati, and you'd probably be like, "Oh my god, I know that place. Oh my god, I know that place."
probably. Yeah. There's a lot of movies that have been done in Cincinnati, actually. Kinda
That's
cool.
true. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Quite a like, it's like a premier location for a lot of filmmakers to go. So I know, Emilio Estevez loves the town, and he just did, what was it called? He was, like, a few years ago, I forget what the movie's called, but he was down here, like, filming a movie in Cincinnati.
Very cool.
But
I'm a big
yeah,
Emilio
like,
Estevez fan. Men at
yeah.
Work is one of
Oh,
my
he's
favorite movies, man.
mhm,
Hilarious.
mhm. That's great. So, but yeah, like, and I think, like, what his favorite neighborhood's over the Rhine, which is, like, spectacular. The way that they've actually developed it, it's pretty nice now. It's just a little too yuppie to my taste, I guess. But and then
Yeah.
you go
Gotta get a
deeper
little
into
hipster.
it, and like you go down, like you walk down Vine Street, right, from downtown into over the Rhine. And like it's all over the Rhine. You get in the over the Rhine on Vine Street, and it's all bars and shops and restaurants. And then you get onto the other side of Vine Street, and it's all abandoned buildings and sketchy, and you'll probably get
Yep.
mugged around the corner. So true
It's kinda
city
like have you
vibe.
been to Austin?
I've
Have you been
never
to
been
Austin?
though.
Like, s okay. So I was lucky to go I just went for my birthday. I'm like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go." I went by myself for a few days. I went to see Rogan's Club and stuff, and you just walk
Mhm.
down Austin on 6th Street, it's like that. It's like weird buildings and then, like, empty, burned out places. You're like, "What? How does this, like, kinda coincide?" You know, it's kinda cool.
It's like
But it's that's what revitalization is, you know? It's same thing
mhm,
happened in Philadelphia too.
mhm.
So,
Shoot,
alright, man.
I
So
remember spending the night at my aunt and my cousin's one year when I was, like, 7, and, we found and, like, while we were there, there was a building down the street on Dane Avenue in the north side neighborhood of Cincinnati where she lives, just down the street, got torched. And like a day or two later on the news, like they discovered like a body, like the remains of some girl. And I guess she got raped and murdered, and then they burned the place down. Wasn't even but
Jesus.
like just down the street from where my aunt still lives, actually. I just remember my mom would not she basically just said, "You're not staying over there anymore. You're
Mhm.
not gonna go spend the night over there anytime soon." So,
Wow. That's scary, man.
yeah, that
That's
was like
scary.
night
Yeah.
I don't know, I was like 7, so I guess 1996 or night
Wow.
I don't remember.
So okay, so you're this you're this anarchist, druggie, ex-druggie, and then now you're a crypto bro.
I'm
How
not
did this
really a
happen?
crypto bro, but
I I know, I know, but, like, I have, like I said, I have, like, 0.0002 Bitcoin or something. I'm
mhm.
so behind on any technology, but you got this show with Andrew. So tell us a little bit about your show. Might as well make this a full interview, man. Tell us a little bit about your show and what you guys talk about and how you got into that.
Honestly, we were just bored. We figured let's try it, and I've learned about Anchor. Now I think it's called, what is it, like podcasters for Spotify, or creators for Spotify now. They've rebranded so much in like such a short time. But we literally just started we would just record off the app on our phones and
Oh,
just
cool.
talk. And we went over like a bunch of things, politics. I think there was one episode that's in our library. I need to just bring that out of the crypt, but it's because there's a movie called Eixa. Um,
Okay.
it's a German film, and it's basically about two twin boys, and their mother is going through some things, and it's a really good movie actually. But basically, an accident occurs. I don't want to spoil the whole movie because I want
No,
you to
no,
go
please
see it.
don't. But something happened.
So, but something
Alright.
happens at the beginning where the two boys are playing. Then one of the boys goes into this cave. This little cavern looking thing. and doesn't come out. You just hear the voice, and then it goes into the movie. And the mother has her issues, and there's like a struggle between son and mom, and so I mean, it's really interesting. I don't really want to talk. If I say
So it's called
more,
Aixa
I
Aixa
will.
Aixa?
Ixa. So,
Alright, you
and we
you'll
actually,
have to put that in the comments. I wanna see how that's
yeah,
spelled, man. That's cool.
yeah.
Alright.
I
So
hope I
you guys
spelled
just
that
started
right.
recording just out of the blue on your app of your phone. Like, one
Basically.
so different from me, man. I'm like one of these over preparers, and I it took me actually like 2 years to, like I built, like, that soundproofing behind me. I built, like, 4 or 5 of these panels. I built, like,
Hmm.
all the stuff. I bought the equipment. Then I upgraded my equipment before I even recorded my first podcast. It's like
Nice.
how backward delusional I was, like, the way I did it, because 'cause I'm one of these weird tech people. So, like, I love technology. So, like, any
Hmm.
excuse to buy stuff, right? Like, electronics for me.
Exactly.
So it took me years to even get started, but it's so cool, like, you and your buddy are like, "You know what? There's so many different ways how we got into that, totally
Hmm.
different styles, you know?"
Well, that's what's kind of nice about it now is you can use just anything. You don't even have to have a mic really anymore. Like you can just talk. So
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, I love that you and I, like, put a little bit into it now with the setup. You got the microphone, the headphones, obviously.
yeah, like it took
And
me a while to finally get set up. I'm like, I need to probably set myself up because the sound is just it's horrible. So
it
I need to
matters. It really
it
does
does
matter, man.
matter.
People do
Hmm.
listen. They do listen. So, alright, I'm gonna put up Justin is a friend of mine. He is, in Arizona, and he is, ah, the best way I he and I are a lot more similar than we might think, but I think he's, like, a couple years behind my path. I think he's like me, like a conservative neoconish guy, but not I don't wanna criticize him
Hmm.
like that. Good guy. We've met. He actually sings Drops of Jupiter like nobody's business apparently, which we actually have to have a Drops of Jupiter off, but that's a whole other thing. But Justin's a good dude. He's got a great question because I've been kind of trying to I'm here to help deprogram. I'm not trying to program people to think a certain way. I'm just trying to get people to think. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, guys, what you're being told, just expand that. Like, take 2 steps back, look at it from a different angle, look at it from a different view. You gotta just it's that's how I am. So I program people to deprogram. So Justin has a great question. How does anarchist view work? Are there any limits, or is it Darwinian survival of the fittest? He's great about this because what I love about Justin is he know like Law& and Order, we are Law& and Order guys. What was it?
Hmm.
Dave Smith just did one. What did he call us? Right-wing liberals? Isn't that Rothbard? Right? Uh, something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
Right-wing hippies,
Yeah.
I think.
Right wing
Ayn
liberal
Rand called us right-wing hippies, and you're like,
hippies.
"Holy
Yep.
crap, right-wing hippie sounds exactly like an oxymoron word for what we
Hmm.
are." Because it's like, I think we live our life very conservatively. I think we have to have values and accountability and responsibility with everything we do. That's pretty right wing, I guess, or whatever. But
Hmm.
then we're
But
also hippies in the way it's like we allow you to be that person, to be that way for yourself or whatever. So share with me the anarchist view for Justin, because I'm not as well versed as you.
I'm gonna sound like Michael Malice on this one, but I
I
love
love it.
how he says it. I love how he says it though, because he's on point. Anarchy is literally relationship. You build a relationship. Like me and you, Mark, we're in a relationship right now. We This is anarchy. Like I don't have authority over you, and you don't have authority over me, and we're just having a conversation. You're conducting it a little bit more because this is your show. You have a little bit more authority just on the basis of how you want things to be run a little bit because this is your theoretically your property, right?
And at the same
So,
point, you consented to that by
mhm,
agreeing to have the conversation,
exactly. So
right? So
that
that
would
is
be
part of
what
the
anarchy is.
relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, like, the definition of anarchy, though, comes from the Greek prefix um, anos, which means without, and the suffix archaea, which means rulers. Not no rules, but without rulers. So you yourself are a ruler. You rule yourself. Not to say that you can't have a leadership. I mean, there. I mean, why not? I mean, I'm not against. I'm not against if you can set up a society or a community that has a leadership that's limited in its governance, its broad scope of governance, and it works. Why not? If it works, it works. So there can be like so that's all anarchy really is. It's just relationship building, being voluntary with one another, and respecting each other. Really, I mean that's the real view of anarchism. And William
I'm
says,
with you that. Yeah, like
yeah,
it is
William.
relationship and so this is the thing, I try to say it this way and like where Justin and I are really gotten connected actually is through Facebook. And
Hmm.
we just got connected on there and we know that the Twitter crowd and the Facebook crowd are two completely different crowds. And it's my opinion that the Facebook crowd's like, I like government when it does what I want it to do.
Hmm.
And you're like, okay. And that's a valid argument. Like everyone likes the government that does what kind of that works with them. Okay, sure. The problem is that's not how it stays, right? Like the thing changes. So it's like we take a step back and go, why am I giving anyone power to wield one way or another for good? Because your good isn't my good necessarily. I can assure you that the suburbs of Cincinnati were way different, have different needs than where you're living right now, which is a little bit more on the outskirts of Cincinnati, right? Like in a
Hmm.
more rural area. So
Yeah.
all these points being said, it's like the government for government to be able to get to do something for you, it also gives them the power to do something to you. And we're just trying to untangle that part, right? Like it's like I'll should we get rid of illegals who have been violent committers of crime? That sounds really good on paper. Yeah,
Hmm.
100%.
But
Now,
how do you
okay,
do it?
now implement it. Right, now
Yeah.
implement that. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you're gonna bust down my door? You're gonna violate my Fourth Amendment because you 'cause you're gonna do a house to house search for these illegals? Well, that doesn't jive with me, you know? So what are your thoughts on something like that? And like when we use it in a practical sense?
Well, see, I'm from Indiana, so if the cops don't have technically, theoretically, I mean, they're going to fight it. But there's a law in Indiana that says if they don't have a warrant, you can,
Wow. I didn't know
yeah.
that.
So,
You can really protect yourself.
not to say that that's not going to harm you in the long run. I mean, remember
Right.
they have guns
Well,
too.
every
So
action has consequences, right?
exactly. But
Well,
that's where I think we don't really necessarily need a police unit. I think to a certain extent, you can set up your own policing powers elsewhere. Keep it private. I mean, you don't need a public one because I mean, when you start going up the level tier and creating public enforcement, that's creating a government. And then you have somebody's always going to think that they can overpower the others. So why not have different vehicles for different people? If they don't like how this service works and how they run things, and they can go somewhere else, or you can just defend yourself.
right, and one of the things is too is, like, I try to your point, like, separate governance from government.
Hmm.
Like, you can have a hierarchical structure where competency, like, is the wisdom of the wise person of the tribe or whatever you wanna call it,
Hmm.
and, yeah, you have Dunbar's number, which is a limitation, but we now have some pretty amazing technology, which I think we can expand the Dunbar number to maybe 10x. Now, that still doesn't make it a million-person city, but why do they have to be million-person civilization? Why do they have to be comprised of these sizes? We can make them smaller, and
Hmm.
I've always thought of the governance part, like because governance is the way we rule or the way we rule ourselves, right? So, police is a great example. Like, people talk about state police or private police. Like, well, who's beholden more to the citizens? someone who directly pays their paycheck or through some tax system has 52 layers of protection for them to be able to
Mhm.
enforce laws that they have created to enforce, you know?
Well, I mean, the best bet if you, for public police service would be your local sheriff because at least you have some sort of control over the sheriff whom hires his deputies. So
Right.
if you don't like how he's running, then I hate to go into the notion of democracy and voting, but because I
Right.
hate it, but you still have a say in as a
Yeah.
community to vote that sheriff out, and you can hold your influence over the sheriff to be constitutional rather than be a tyrannical nut job. Whereas you don't really have that with large metropolitan. And I get it, larger cities, you're going to have a lot more issues, bigger police force. So it's just hard to regulate in a large city. So, but
Yeah.
these other jurisdictions that are outside of the county or large cities, I mean, it's just you don't know exactly how they're getting paid. Like you said, we have a tax system that goes thick as thieves, very deep, and it's very intrinsic. Whereas you know exactly where your sheriff's getting his money, your property tax.
Right. Right.
So
That's true. Yeah, and to your point, I mean, from a pragmatic perspective, even as an anarchist, you could even make arguments that you're like, some of the local elections really directly affect me, and those matter. So
yep.
maybe I should, right? So,
Well,
it's
yeah,
not like we're like tear it all down, burn it to the ground. We're just
mhm,
saying be vigilant, right?
exactly. Well, there's this girl. Her name is Rachel Sunshine. She is an anarchist. She actually wrote a book before COVID called "How Medical Tyranny Murdered the Constitution." And if you go to her
Great.
Facebook page, there's a P. She has it on PDF because that's how you can get it now, and download it for free and be able to check it out and read it. But me and Andrew had her on actually last year. I forget exactly. I think it was early last year. I think literally like a year ago, and February, March. But she actually is of the fact that local is matter, and she's a hardcore like anarchist. Like she'll even say she is your Emma Goldman style anarchist. Like, and we're talking Emma Goldman before she got deported to Russia. Violent Emma Goldman, not peaceful. But she actually has ran locally. I think when she was out in California, I believe. I think that's what she said. But she's actually ran locally as an anarchist, not even a political party. She actually ran as an anarchist just to prove the point. And so, like, I think political uh, aspirations on trying to get certain single issues going and talked about on the local level, you certainly
Yeah,
could utilize. Just because you're an anarchist doesn't mean you can't be active politically.
yeah. Well, like once again, we just keep going back to these points. It's like the government sounds great. Trump wants to get rid of bad guys. Sounds great, right? Yeah, check that out,
Mhm.
guys. Go to Give, Send, Go. Give a couple bucks. We're having a little fun. We're having a fundraiser. We're gonna have a telethon. We're gonna have crazy stuff. Juggling will be going on, but not by me. So
And we're here
so
to
we've
make
got these things
America great again.
and very healthy. So
That was
that's
actually
right.
good. That
That's the best. I'm Robert Kennedy Jr. and I ran against Rectenwald. I did a debate with him and he mopped the floor with me. I would like to send him some gifts and go at the link down below. So
was that the
that took
brainworm?
a lot out of me.
Yeah, that bad. That has to be. I don't know how you could do that one. Was that the
Oh man.
brainworm speaking,
That's
or was that
brainworm guy.
actual?
Yeah. So you saw it, the files, the JFK files. Did you see
Mhm.
him do the sign? I shared that link with you. Let me see. I think I might have it pulled up. Let me see if I can pull it up here because it is like the coolest thing. All right, let me pull this up for everybody to watch this. We're gonna do this, we'll talk about it real quick because we love this so much. Alright, where you at, Twitter? There we are. They're gonna see our thing.
While you fix it, I'm gonna answer Justin's question here. Uh, we all started tribal, then came, and actually the religious aspect was kind of mixed within the tribal and the hunter gathering stuff. But we discovered agriculture and we started to settle because of agriculture. And from there, we started realizing if we're going, as we began to create civilization and urbanize, we needed other systems in place because there was going to be much more than just agriculture. So then as urbanization grew, that's where you started rising a government structure from bottom to top as a foundation, and then that's where we just go from there. And that's just going basic history, looking into the ancient Sumerians and how they started their civilization. So they were the cradle of civilization for our modern sense.
And I'm gonna answer that question also from a different angle.
Mhm,
I think people crave a hierarchical structure, not a necessarily a government structure, and it's hard to say. I mean, I think there was an evolutionary benefit obviously to that. And even Jordan Peterson, I think, talks about the lobster and how it's
mhm,
hierarchical. So, like, we're talking about it is deep brain evolution, this hierarchical structure, because ultimately, like, there is a self, right? There's a self survival of some sort. So you want to be the top of everything. Now, that said, culturally, we've done it through religions and other things, and we really build everything on this hierarchical structure versus like a check and balance kind of structure, right? Where that was unique about the United States with the little three-legged thing where they kinda had a little bit of check and balance, and the fourth was the people with their ability to defend themselves or whatever, with
mhm.
2A backing the freedom of speech. So,
Yep.
I I think that people do see a hierarchical structure, and I think it is hard to deprogram that, because I think that's like, everybody has different levels of intellect. I would think 99.9% have this level of intellect, and it's hard to break that to these other levels above that. But everybody has this base hierarchical, and that's why it kind of works for everybody because it's kind of utilitarian, I think.
Mhm.
For
And to your point, and this is one of the many books that I keep trying to read, but this is about the Anunnaki connection. And to your point on the structure of how have that hierarchical uh, naivety in us, we need to have something. I think it does. It goes back to the gods, and I'm gonna go into picking the brain like I think if the Anunnaki, I actually do believe the Anunnaki existed, and they were another race from far off, and they created man. God didn't. God created everything else. I'm not taking that's not taking away my Christianity, but something human beings and evolution and the Darwinian idea of evolution does not make sense. Everything else on this planet with evolution makes sense, but human beings don't. And I think there's something in our DNA that has created our want for and our need for some sort of hierarchical structure. And I think that goes back towards the Anunnaki. But I
yeah,
only speak in
I would even
hypotheticals.
yeah. It
So,
well, did you see my podcast on Jason's on Drop the Mask?
which one?
The
Last week?
one where, like, where he kinda just interviewed me, kinda like how we're talking, like we're getting to know each
Uh,
other.
mm, I don't think I have yet. I'll have to look that up.
Okay, so, like,
I'll look that one
I
up.
yeah, I'll share yeah, and just at a
Yeah.
50,000 foot level, I had a near death experience at 13,
Mhm.
and I started getting psychic visions at 40. So, I started experiencing things that happened, and I'm you if you talk to me right now and I told you that, like, that doesn't sound like something that I would be able to like, that would be me because, like, we've had
Mm,
conversations that have nothing to do with any of that. They've all been about reason and logic and general, like, stuff, right? So, like,
mm,
I struggle with what that is, and I actually struggle with religion, and I absolutely understand the value, 100%. I think that
Mhm.
we have it wrong, and that's the problem, 'cause as a truth
Yep.
seeker, I'm not saying that it's our interpretation is not correct, or we're not being told the full story because there's stuff that's being hidden once again through the church, whatever. If it is all through the church, I think it's also outside the church and other stuff. But yeah, I'd ask you to check out that podcast, but remember when I told you I did my run of like 12 podcasts?
Mhm.
One for on the it's actually on the UFO Chronicles podcast. So I did like an hour and a half with them. That should be coming out like mid-February or something, so I'll let everybody know when that's out. But,
Nice.
like, to your point, you're talking about Anunnaki, it's like you and I could probably have some I don't wanna get too far off the rails, we should have a separate podcast about that probably because 'cause
We
we're talking
should.
about actual real things, like making Rectenwald better. Where's that link at? Let's see. Where's he at? No, that's not it. Alright, there it is. Alright, so make sure that happens. Down there, everybody.
Yep.
So, I really wanna tell you, but I think your Anunnaki thing's right to an extent, like, it could be
Yeah.
the evolution just from the base of all creation has that hierarchical structure, worked its way up
Mhm.
to multicellular organisms. But and I think we're gonna table it in a second because we might go off the rails, but are you one of those, like, they dipped into the DNA and made us jump
Oh, yeah.
a huge evolution? Okay,
Yeah.
so with
Oh,
that,
yeah.
you think they put, like, a slave DNA hierarchical
Mhm.
structure in that as well, like, as an added zhuzh?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
I
No,
think we
that's
definitely need
exactly
to
what
talk
they
about
did.
that one day.
That's because
Okay,
the
so
Anunnaki came yeah, the Anunnaki came to this planet. They discovered our cousins, realized we're sick and tired. We don't really wanna mine our own gold, but the simple part of the story, I'm not gonna go detail, but they came to this planet seeking they kinda just ran into it. I mean, Nibiru, the home planet, is on a 3,600, year orbit, but they
I've heard
needed their
5,000.
atmosphere was failed. Like, I believe
Was it
their
not?
atmosphere was failing because of,
Okay.
they were in a war, and their enemies used a planetary, like, destruction, like a planetary weapon, sort of like the Death
Interesting.
Star, and so
Yeah.
their atmosphere was failing, and they needed, to replenish it with gold, and when they discovered what they discovered on Earth was an abundance in gold, so they needed to mine that, send it back home, and that's where they kind of started messing with the creatures on this planet, ape-like, maybe other creatures. Possibly, it's where you get the Nephilim in the
Yep.
Bible, and they just started splicing, trying to figure out that perfect master slave race that they could use and abuse and get the work done. And then you have uh then you have the brothers though, Inky and Enlil, whom Anu, he had to go back to the homeworld for something, and he left Earth uh, with uh, in command. He left the command of Earth with Enlil, and Enlil and Inky kind of had this little feud um, on the basis of what to do with these people, right? And Inky actually essentially, but he perceived that they had something more than just being a slave race. So now we're going to go into like the Genesis in the Bible where the serpent, it kind of gets flipped. Inky is the serpent, but he's actually doing it good by giving humans knowledge so that they can
Knowledge, which is a light,
actually
so
yeah,
they
so
can
they can
become
actually
their own.
venture back, so they can free
Yeah.
themselves from the slavery that they're being forced up under as subjects to Enlil. So you have that rebellion in nature there. So that's where it
So let
kind
me
of
ask
gets
you this.
with.
I gotta ask you this because it's absolutely curious. On a percentage, out of 100, what's your probability of this being the case? Are you, like, sold on it? Are you, like, 51-49 and growing, or where are you at on that? Because like,
Uh,
I love the ideas because we don't know anything until we
mhm.
start delving in. So, like, I love that happened. Is this from this book that you shared, or is this from other sources?
That's one. This is one book, and actually, I got this. this one and the Anunnaki connection actually, it was recommended because she was on, Heather Lynn was actually on the paranormal podcast with Jim Harold, and they do recommendation on books. So I got this and started reading it, but then I've read like Zachariah Zitchin and
That's true.
Von Daniken, so Eric Von Daniken, all them guys. So like
Are you
a
familiar with
little bit
Dolores
of like
Cannon at all?
everything. What is it?
Are you familiar with Dolores Cannon? She does hypnosis and, like, can talk to allegedly, like, Nostradamus and stuff.
Oh yeah, I know who Dolores. Yeah.
It's a real interesting one. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you definitely I
Very.
would definitely recommend you check out, and actually, I'd recommend everyone check out the one with Jason, because what you
Mm-hmm.
hear here is nothing what I talk about and what I've experienced in my
Yeah.
life. It is night and day. Now, I am intrigued because I did when you and I just met actually what, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like
Pretty
actual
much.
or
Yeah.
like even through this.
Actually, no.
And I saw your cross, and it just makes me curious right off the bat because you're displaying it. So obviously, is it pride? Is it a shield? Is it just so you can look down and recognize it? Because you had a connection to that earlier. You mentioned like a connection to that.
It's both. My pride with God. Yeah, because I mean, I've had a like I've been fighting and battling between Christianity all my life, so I've been a rebel. So, and every time it seems like I'm going back to God, uh, I turn around and give him the finger. I mean, and I actually had a rough year, and I actually put this cross back on, uh, like I think like no, like maybe November. No, I think I finally put it on, but really with no meaning in like November of 2023. And
Okay.
I started going, but then out of like at the end of November, I ended up, something happened where like I started having panic attacks that I've never had in my life. Um, and I think it just had a whole lot of stress from losing my mom a year earlier, and
Oh, I'm
finally
sorry for your
sitting
loss.
down and finally and grieving. Like I never actually truly grieved, and then there were other issues too that arose, and I ended up going through like bouts of panic attacks and anxiety. And one day last March, I touched this cross. I went out, it was standing on my back deck. I went like this on this cross, and then I just started praying to God and like, please let me get through this. Like, I beg of you, like, help me, give me strength. And what do I need to do to get over all this? And from here on out, I've actually been like, I got on medication too, just to help. But that was before I got back on medication. A week later, I finally saw the doctor to get back on some medication, and but I ended up, everything just stopped. I'm like, well, I guess I'm turning myself back to the Lord. So
Oh,
because
hold on.
yeah,
I wanna change I wanna change that too because I have a specific question. Did you I think Spike mentioned it. Spike Cohen just found faith, for example, and he it's like a surrender. Like, you didn't turn to it, you, like, trust fell. You just, like, let
yeah,
go.
I
Did you
surrendered.
do you feel let go, or do you feel a turning? Like, because the experience I feel would be the euphoric one would be like a letting go, like, almost like, like elevating or hovering out of it,
Yeah,
versus, like, because turning yourself around is really you doing it, and the surrender
yeah,
is like,
yeah.
because it
You're
changes it
actually,
for you. Yeah.
that's a good question. Actually, I would probably say the former. I felt like I just kind of let myself go back to God and let Him take care of it all, because all of a sudden, like within, like it was within mere minutes, like I was having a really bad panic attack at that moment. and I couldn't calm down, come out of it, and I had just gone come back from like a week straight one, like I don't, yeah, like I where I never could come down from it, and as soon as I prayed and I literally and meant it and let my soul and my heart go to God, it was like the world stopped, and like
Yeah.
I just calmed down just out of nowhere, just within minutes, and then I got gradually better within the week. The next day, I called my doctor to get in to see somebody to get back on my medication that I hadn't been on in a while, but it has somewhat worked. And from here on out,
You got, like, this
yeah,
answer when you set your intention. I mean, prayer like,
yeah,
we can the religion and spiritual thing are so parallel, and the one of the biggest issues
yep,
between the 2 is, like, you're trying to personify it, describe it, label it, like, it's
hmm,
crazy. So, like, what happens is praying is setting an intention. It's the
hmm,
same thing. Like, and the problem is people are like, "Well, I'm praying to God." Well, what do you think you're setting an intention is like you're putting it out there. Like how it's the same type of thing, you know? And
hmm,
it's interesting how people fight so much over the religion, blah, blah, blah thing. I have completely
yep,
different issues with it, but which I'm able
yeah,
to eloquate,
well,
but it's like, but the faith thing, man, is absolutely beautiful. And I
hmm,
love like
hmm,
I'll be honest, if anyone could talk me into probably believing or having that moment like you, it'd be Spike Cohen. That guy can talk that guy could talk anybody into or out of almost anything. The dude just, like, has this way of doing it, you know what I mean? He's, like, persuasive, you know? So, like, it's great that he joined that, but I'm like, I wanna pick his
hmm.
brain as to how that happened, and I think what you're sharing is very similar, is like this letting go. Now, is the cross was that from a gift? Did you buy it yourself and just didn't wear it?
Uh, this is actually surprisingly enough, this is probably the only thing my dad ever got me that was worth something. And he actually got it blessed by the bishop in our archdiocese. So this is a blessed cross. So, and
That is
it's
cool. When did you get it? For a present or how like, when
when did I think I got it? I think he got it for my birthday
very
10
cool,
years ago,
very
something
cool.
like that. I think it was like 10 years ago. It's Philippians chapter 4, 7 and 13. So, and I'm gonna butcher it unless I read it off the cross
Hold
and
on,
look
I'm
it,
gonna
but
pull it up. Just
yeah,
keep talking, man. I'm
but
gonna 4
but
and
it's
13?
4, 4, 7 and 4:13 are the
4,
verses.
7.
So yeah,
Got it. Yep.
Philippians. But effectively, Philippians 13 is my strength is within Christ. Just to tell you the gist of it. So
I'm
basically,
gonna try this. I hope this is correct, but it says, "Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then God of peace will be with you." Does that sound close?
variations. That sounds
Okay, cool.
relatively
Yeah, I
close.
just that's an
So
AI pull up, so
yeah.
that is
But,
awesome. That is beautiful, man. So
mm,
so you touch it and you literally get that zap, like
mhm.
it is it.
Oh man, every
And
day, like most people probably think I'm weird. Like I was just the last time I went to mass because I go to mass every now and again, just because I still would like to go to
you
mass.
have to do what you have to
Yeah,
do. Right,
yeah,
and if you want it like,
yeah,
I know people who love that stuff, man. Do it.
hmm, yeah,
Like, how is it different than any other hobby or any other thing you like to
hmm,
do? You like to work on a car, if you like to go to meet people, if you like to bathe in that energy, whatever. You do you, man.
exactly.
That's beautiful.
Well, yeah,
Anyway,
and
please continue, go ahead.
I guarantee you they probably look at me like I'm weird because like I'll do the sign of the cross like this, and then I'll kiss my cross, and then I'll go like this, and that's how I end mine. Like I have like a huge I've made a routine out of ending and starting a prayer. So
That's cool though, but like, you made it yours. Like, it's your
yeah,
personal
it's my
right, like
personal. Yeah.
And that's the thing I've always said is like I've used religions like any hierarchical structure, like a government. It's like they're
Mhm.
gonna manipulate and use what they know. If you think about certain things when they can only read and write, what are they telling you? They're telling you what'll keep you in line much more than what's like truthful about the world, the God or whatever. You know what I mean? Just that's just my opinion because humans are fallible. That's just how we do it, right? That's just how we are. So that's what I've
Mhm.
always had is like, you gotta have that direct personal faith, that direct thing,
Mhm.
and to do your thing, your ritual, that is exactly what that is, 'cause that's yours.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Alright,
And
so
then
I'm gonna pull it up
and
now.
speaking of
Oh,
that, I'm gonna say
yeah,
Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Right.
I do spectacles, testicles, watch, and wallet, but, you know.
Yeah, there you go. That works too. So, but,
I got that
Dr.
from what,
Michael
Nuns on the Run,
Rectenwald,
I think
yeah,
something
so
some really
but a
weird
quick
movie.
yeah, a quick prayer to both God and Doctor Evil. Um, so,
A
help Doctor, Rectenwald
$100,000,000,000.
Michael Rectenwald
Yes.
get $100 billion and,
11
get through
billion. 11, yes,
11
excellent.
million
Yes, one for
and
my
gets
Hermie. All right, man. So let's go back. We're gonna
so
do this. I gotta play it. I think I found it. I'm gonna pull it up here. Let's see if I can't butcher this or not. But let's see.
you find it?
Yep. All right. Did I not share it? Oh
I
man,
don't thi
I'm
yeah,
so dumb.
you didn't share it.
I'm the dumbest person. See, this is what 50-year-olds do
Lastly,
here, my
sir, we
friend.
have an
All right, here we go. Are you
We'll
ready?
blame Trump.
All right. Is it working? Okay, there we go. Now we got it. All
Yes.
right. My apologies, everyone. I think we just lost 22 people, but I apologize.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed. Okay? Give that to RFK Jr.
Yes, sir.
There it is.
I just
All
wanna
right.
know if they have enough black ink for when they redact everything.
I know, seriously. So here's what's interesting. I think Libertarian Goth shared this,
Mhm.
shared the clip. And she's like, "Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, they did it. Ah!" And you're like, "Yeah." And the second I saw it, I was like, "This is cool." And I gotta admit, does Trump know how to freaking sell everything, man? He's just looking so pretty like this superhero. He's like, "It's all
He
gonna be
does.
revealed. It's gonna be great." And he goes, "Give the pen to Robert. Give him the pen, the one that I just told the one that murdered your uncle and your father." And you're just like, "God damn, that's fucking brilliant." You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
he knows how to work. He
he
knows how to
just
sell a
knows
work.
how to. Yes, that is like, but like that's so American to me.
I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
he was part of WrestleMania one year. He did get
Yes,
to shave Vince McMahon's head.
he did. Yes.
Perfect storyline. Stupid,
I'm
but perfect.
it's amazing, man. It's like and then I look and it's like executive order, and he goes, "Oh, it will be revealed." And you're like, "You said it. You shouldn't have said all that shit because you know it's not all gonna get revealed. You
Yep,
done did it again, Donald. You could have just said, 'I'm signing the executive order.' You could have just stopped there, but he had to like do that extra,
he
and now
had
he's
to
gonna get
add.
burned for that.
Mhm.
You know what I
They
mean? Because he
will.
said all revealed. No way.
No,
No way.
they're not gonna let it. They won't. They're not gonna let it get revealed. They're gonna
Is
hide as
is it
much as they can, and honestly, it's probably gonna end up. What we don't know, and we will never know, is what did Israel have? Did Israel have anything to do with it? And if they did, then that's definitely going to get buried because he is too far up Netanyahu's ass. It's not even funny. So,
if we look now, there's an amazing documentary or maybe a mini series or whatever, multiple show series that's called Continuation of Government, something
mm,
like that, or no, This Is How We All Die or something, or this is how what the heck is it called? It's some really crazy one.
mhm,
Anyway, and what it is, it shows you that there's an underlying current that is running to stay, like, to exist, just like a single-celled amoeba has to exist after the whole asteroid thing goes, right? Like,
mhm,
there's a continuation of government, continuity. Oh, man, I screwed up. The continuity of government. Somebody said it during a was it an Iran-Contra, and they shut down the hearing, and somebody just said it at a congressional thing, like, last year while under the Biden administration. She said something
mhm.
about the continuity of government can't stop, and you're like, there's something that runs underneath it, and it's even part of our even nuclear stuff is like, it doesn't matter. We just need one more of us than them, or we just
Harris
need
said
2 of
that.
us or something left. What's that?
I think that was Harris said that
Okay,
in a speech. Yeah,
right,
he said something
yeah,
about
imagine, like,
continuity of
all
go. Mhm,
yeah, yeah. So there's this thing, and I do implore, and I'll try to put up the feed from when we have these conversations because there's so many things we talk about. But it's like
mhm,
this thing is underlying, and if I I have zero issue with any race, religion, creed that anyone carries. I have national issues with Israel, the state. I come from Nazism. I know what Nazi actions are, and it's my
mhm,
opinion that the Zionists are doing not very good actions right now. They're emulating the people that did horrible, atrocious things to them, and not much never deserved. Completely
mhm.
wrong, absolutely wrong. But kicking it down the can and becoming your oppressors isn't exactly the greatest solution to that. Anyway, just
No.
an opinion. Anyway, so these things run deep, they run long, but there's obviously been a connection with Israel and this country where we are, we call it the United States of Israel, even in jokes, the 51st state, 50, whatever.
Mhm,
And look at this stuff. AIPAC's influence, 97% of the people they backed in primaries won. And they're, obviously they're touting that like, look how much influence we have.
mhm.
And AIPAC's just the front of it. There are behind the scenes that are funding way more money. Like Soros has all these things funded behind other things
Yep.
as other organizations as well. These are real things. This isn't conspiracy stuff. This is real. So, with all that said, if we find a direct connection that continuity government started when Kennedy said, "I'm not going to have a continuity government," like because remember the Khrushchev, we looked at the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's where I think they said, "All right, nuclear stuff can really happen, so we got to figure out a way that we're going to survive that because it might still
Mhm.
happen." So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the government has a speaking of continuity of government, the government has a plan. They even have a plan to at the day after plan from after we're all annihilated and the nukes have gone off and we come out at fallout, they have a plan to still retrieve the taxes.
Yeah,
They
crazy,
to
right?
give send go your taxes. The IRS
Give,
has a
send, go, everybody.
so I mean that's it runs deep. Not only that,
It
but
does.
I don't know if it's still open. I think they finally shut that one down. Now it's just historical. But there's a house in I think it's in Virginia. It's out in it might be West Virginia, but there's like this big old mansion and there's a bunker underneath. And it's to house like the both houses of Congress and the president and his cabinet. And I mean, they can function in a bunker underneath this mansion in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, as and just still run the government while chaos is ensuing from like attack, nuclear or otherwise, or invasion or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's commissioned anymore, but just because they might say it's decommissioned doesn't necessarily mean it's decommissioned. But then you also
Mhm.
have Denver as well and their underground situation, which is kind of creepy. So that could be another area where they could continue with the government. I mean, they have so many other options
Yep.
to
Yeah,
continue running.
it's crazy. It's crazy, and it's funny 'cause, I used to work at Xerox, and there's this building, like, outside of Virginia that we went to for some kind of training or whatever, and it was one of these underground Pentagon type things, and the corridors got lost and everything. They had a cafeteria down there, and it was one of
Yep.
those retrofitted old like, whatever bomb shelter type things where you could just live it down there forever, and it was a freaking maze, man, and that was just some regular building. No one really thought anything of it, and you're like, "Man, this is crazy." So, all right, I found the thing. It's called While the Rest of Us Die. I put an Amazon Prime up there, but I'm sure you can get it everywhere else. But once again, guys, we have 57 people on tonight. Thank you so much for joining. Zach and myself. That's awesome. I think that's amazing. It's a Thursday night. You could be doing much better things than that, but we're not here for us. We're here for wreck. We're here to wreck the regime, everybody. I'm going to share, before we continue this conversation, I'm going to share one more thing about wreck because this is exactly what you said. You listened, and I had wreck on my show for the first time December of 2023, even. Was it? No, 24. December of last year. Oh, no, it was 2023. Holy mackerel,
23.
it's been that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that long ago. Jeez. Anyway, he is such a nice guy, and it was funny because it was Natalie Danilician's birthday, and I had asked him to sing happy birthday. So he actually sings happy birthday, but then he ended with this beautiful piece that I'd like to share with you. And
Brilliant.
then there it is. All right. Doctor, thank you so much. That is
Brilliant.
our gracious doctor. And then the Fed, he was a silly, he's like a silly guy. Like I found him to be, he can laugh at himself. He's a grandfather. Everybody
Mhm.
donate, couple bucks, just a couple bucks. We're just so grateful that
And
you guys could join us for tonight.
and if the shenanigans and that gummy didn't get in the way, LP.
You heard him talk about the gummy. Hey, look, he took accountability for. He's like, I expected it to be like a 10 or 20, and it was like a 200 or something. He said, it's like
Oh, I blame
that'll do
I
it.
blame Donald Trump, honestly.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think it was
he
somebody from
was
the Trump campaign.
he was angry, wasn't he?
Yeah, I would
like he
be
was
too.
something happened. I don't even know the whole story, but
I don't yeah.
yeah, that's
But I
unfortunate.
mean,
Gummygate, right?
y
Unfortunately, so
Gummygate, but there was more to Gummygate than the gummy, though, that's for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I mean, certainly, man, I don't know how much I want to. I'm not sure. I'd like. Oh, uh, Angela McCardle certainly trumpeted Ross Ulbricht, but Thomas Massey has been doing it too. You know,
Yeah, and
Thomas
so it's
Massey got
Spike.
to read a letter that he got
Mhm,
from Ross in prison on IRL yesterday.
mhm,
And look, this is amazing. But if I look back and I smelled shenanigans in the LP when I watched that vote and watched the way that unfolded, and I met Chase, I met Termont, I met Angela, I shook their hands, looked them in the eye, and I just got strange vibes from each of them in different ways. I tried to
mhm,
engage with them and ask them questions, and it felt like they were not interested in my depth that I was willing to dig. And
mhm.
something just and then you look at the connection, how everybody's together, and you're like, like ANCAP Air. You jumped on that yesterday. There was a spaces with ANCAP
Yep.
Air and Jeremiah. And I'll
Mhm,
be honest, I I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna share this. Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter was a, UN or US military bomb inspector or something, and he is
mhm,
now anti-war. Now, he is embroiled in some really salacious allegations that have to do with children, and that's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
However, I do know that that is the first and foremost way that all people get dinged.
Yep.
And when ANCAP was on last night and Jeremiah spoke about it, they were talking about Scott Ritter in not a good light. And once again, I think he is a convicted of that. That doesn't once again, this is one of those ones where we're like, those are always guilty regardless. It's like a rape allegation. You can never shake
Mhm.
those. So what are your thoughts on Ritter, and have you ever thought about, like, where Ritter's place is with this, like, with Horton and all this stuff? Because like, Horton's pretty clean as a whistle. I haven't seen anything with that. He's, happily married and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
obviously Dave Smith's, who he is, but Ritter's got this weird cloud over his head, and I'm curious if you think there's shenanigans at play or if he,
That's a
you
good
know
question. I don't know much a whole lot about Ritter, but it's interesting why now. But at the same time, the harder
Yeah,
there's Andrew.
Andrew.
But at the same time, you just don't really know. Like, because these are the cases, and my dad's a prosecutor, and so these are the hardest cases to try. And when you take somebody down and convict them, you have all the evidence, you have to have all the facts straight. So I mean, you said he is convicted, right?
I I don't wanna speak out of turn 'cause
Yeah.
that's what I hear, 'cause that's what they said on
So,
the Spaces
mhm,
yesterday. I'm
yeah,
trying to be sensitive because, like,
mhm.
let me I can
Well,
I can
yeah,
tell you this, Jared of Subway is a complete douchebag, and we know that, like, that shit happened. We do know that.
yeah.
I also
Oh,
do
yeah.
know that computer stuff has been put on other people's stuff, and if it's
Yep,
just that, it carries the same federal crime because it crosses state lines, for example, things
exactly.
like that. So, like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Andrew, welcome, man. You wanna chime in, my friend? How you doing?
I didn't. I no, not bad. I didn't get. I don't know what you guys are talking about, so I just stepped in.
Uh, so we're talking about Scott Ritter.
Okay.
If do you know who Scott Ritter is?
I don't know his the context of the situation.
Okay, never mind. We'll let it go. But anyway, final
Okay.
thoughts on that before we move on because we got to talk to
Oh,
Andrew.
yeah, I was gonna say the only thing I would have to say there is if he's convicted, then it's kind of hard to say, well, what you could look, it's all public. Like, what facts did they have evidence wise? So they would have to, they really would have to have a lot of evidence collected in order to prove his guilt. If he's not, it's these cases are one of the hardest to convict, especially when, I mean, it's easier to charge somebody with, CP on their computer, because it's there. But at the same time, to your point, somebody else could have planted it. So maybe you do a further investigation. Usually it's just open shut, though, sadly. If there's an actual child involved, though, and you go further on that case, it's a lot harder because it's a child and they're not really the best witness as a victim because they're a child. So, I mean, unless they're a little older,
Uh,
but we're
and
talking like
it's the
younger.
most
So
sensitive thing to talk about. Yeah. So
it
thank
is.
you for even sharing like some thoughts on it. Cause like,
Hmm.
look, the thing is, we're just seeking truth. And when
Yeah.
and if he's gonna deny it every time. I think
Oh
everybody
yeah.
who was convicted of it, regardless of doing it or not, would.
Hmm.
So I don't know. And it's like it's tough because it's like the idea of his anti-war stance really
Hmm.
powerful. But if it's mired in like an evil acting individual, who violates the absolute most of, the most sacred of which is children,
Hmm.
that's unacceptable. So, all right. I'll let that go. Andrew, let's laugh, man. All right, everybody give send go. Give send go. Give Mike some money. Wreck, wreck, wreck,
Oh,
wreck, wreck, wreck.
Lori has a question in the comments for you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Let's get them on here. All
Yeah.
right. So, Andrew, why don't you catch us up with how you're doing? And I'm gonna hit mute here while I talk with Lori.
I've been doing okay. Just working every day and trying to help build podcast with Zach. So not too terribly interesting going on.
Yes, but are you growing hair?
That's top secret.
Oh, come on. Top secret like the JFK files.
Right?
Wait,
Classified.
what do you have you seen that clip yet? Trump did it, man. He did it.
He
What
said
do you think
pass the
about
pen
that?
on to the family. There you go. Oh man, I mean, I hope it's definitely something juicy. I think everyone deserves to know the truth. So I'm gonna
But do you
look
think
and see if it's actually out there yet or not.
do you think we'll actually know the truth though? Do you think they'll make sure some things don't get out?
Oh, I'm sure that they're gonna only release like 80% of what they do have. That they probably won't release anything seriously killer. They'll probably wait.
'Cause, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I
by the
just
way, we forgot about this 20 years ago. So
20 years ago.
And that's the thing is like the people aren't the problem. It's going to be the institutions that they were working under for. And look who we have. We got Wreck
Hey,
the
what's going
Regime in
on?
the house.
Hey,
Welcome.
hey there, man.
Welcome.
How you doing, buddy? Talk to us.
Yeah, well, I just want to correct one thing. I haven't gone under the knife yet, so that's coming up very shortly. They want to run some tests, and I should say that the what I have is a severe stenosis of the arterial of the artery, my aorta. So in the valve, there's stenosis. So it causes a shortness of breath and stuff because there's a regurgitation of the blood. And don't think this is from some sort of self-abuse. So I know you talked about the gummy, which I want to address. And this is a genetic because I have a bicuspid valve. And because of bicuspid, it tends towards stenosis. Don't ask me why, but and then I have an aortic aneurysm. And so they figure they'll just take care of both of them at once. So.
Well, God bless you, Rick. And hopefully all goes well. Speaking of an aortic,
What you were saying, why I wanted to jump in was because of some of the things you about about the Bible, about the interpretation of Scripture you mentioned, and I'm very familiar with all this. It's very interesting to me, and I should say, when you guys were talking about surrender, effectively, and drugs and addiction, really, and I have a lot of experience with that. Not so much myself. My son is a crack addict, and that's all been going on at the same time as I'm dealing with this. So he has he's under the grips of this unbelievably powerful drug. And, he's completely it's taken over his day, functioning all together. He's really in trouble. So pray for me. I pray that he gets, like he surrenders at some point. Let's not go on dire subjects here. I'm going to have some fun.
Right.
Let's go to. I want to speak about the Scott Ritter thing. Okay, Scott Ritter was set up by the FBI. They sent a young girl to contact him. I guess through some sort of instant messaging thing, and then he bid on it, not knowing her age. But then they sent somebody again. I think the same person, and by this point he knew her age and he bid. And it was only online sexual parlance. It wasn't. He never had sex with some young girl. So this was a complete setup, and they did that because he knew too much about the fact he was the weapons inspector in Iraq. He learned that there were no enemies. He's the guy that turned that evidence over. There was nothing there then. So that's why they went after him. As to the gummy.
We had to talk about it.
We had to.
We had to, right?
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing is like we're here to talk about openly about all. We're fallible humans here. We all do stuff, but it's like none of our intent is evil. But we see these people actually having evil intent and doing these evil actions, and we just want some freedom here.
Over the course of the campaign, I took to like hitting like one hit of a weed vape before each debate and before each talk because it loosened me up and let me sort of flow better.
Mm-hmm.
And before the Trump thing, it was like the biggest, like I was nervous out of my mind. I was supposed to speak right after Trump. And so I thought what I was given was like a CBD. And I didn't realize it was 100 milligrams of marijuana, THC. And so rest is history. I mean, here's what I would have said had I been in my right mind. That the authoritarians that were attacking Trump were much worse than him. And we're seeing that play out right now. These people are complete tyrants. And Trump has flaws. I don't agree with his sort of mercantilistic economic policy. I'd rather not have tariffs, although I think it's better than income tax. And the other thing about Trump is, he might do some things that will offend libertarians. But most of the stuff right now, it's like gravy, man. It's unbelievable. So, I mean, he's releasing the RFK, JFK, and MLK files. We talked about that. He's basically suggested what was going to be redacted is going to be material related to Israel. That's a very, very good question. We can get the files that include information about all of the players involved. Like, for example, Sirhan killed RFK. Was a patsy. He did not do it. I mean, the bullet came from the back. How they get away with this shit is beyond words. Okay, the bullet was in the back of the head. Sirhan was facing RFK. Here's my setting here. I'm in bed. So anyway, so
there's questions about James Earl Ray as well, isn't there? About he was just a lowly crook or whatever, and then all of a sudden he got all these means.
Yeah, he was the CIA plant, and Sirhan, they picked him because he was Palestinian, so that they could, basically deflect onto the enemy instead of, themselves, to deflect the guilt from themselves to the enemy. So this is how twisted this deep state is, which I think it comes from the elements within it, and the same people that are, listen, this is not the Jews, okay, but the same people that are controlling Israel are controlling, are the deep state of the United States.
And to be clear, before you continue, Doc, we've made a very clear distinction between any race, religion, color, creed, whatever, and this nation state of evil that we're talking about.
Right, and it's a deep state And the sense is that not all of the players are actually technically involved in the state per se, but they have a tremendous influence on the state. And they end up pulling the levers of power, if not directly, through various means, blackmail, bribery, carrot and stick stuff. It's very simple. So,
I want to pick your brain on something a little bit because there's a pattern actually, if you think about it. What do you think of the pattern between the founding of the Federal Reserve with the Balfour Doctrine, then the founding of the CIA, and then the founding of the State of Israel? How does that all tie in? Because it's kind of coincidental that all four, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's weird.
well, the Balfour Declaration was signed was sent. It was a letter sent to
In 1918, right?
no, much later.
In that range. Well, we've got income tax and the creation of the Fed in 13. The Great War, World War I, starts in 14.
Right.
There's a coincidence. There's a correlation there, right?
The story is that Wilson was very susceptible to blackmail because he had an affair that was ongoing with his career in presidency. This time, we were even more Puritan about things like that than today. So, the Balfour Declaration, as one theory goes, I'm not going to stand this up as actually being the only theory or whether it's true, but they bribed Wilson into going into World War I and used the Balfour Declaration to get what they promised England in return for the land of Israel, that was now Israel and more. They promised them that the United States would be brought into World War I against the Germans. That was the promise that this is how the theory goes. This is the promise that was made. They promised to bring the U.S. into a war against the Germans, and that up until this point, the Germans were not losing. In fact, they pretty much won it. There wasn't much to win. As we know, there's nothing really won in war. It's expenditure of capital for nothing, usually, except for conquest. But in the case of very equal powers or semi-equal powers, you're going to get nothing but capital loss, devastation, etc. So, nevertheless, the Germans had lost, put it that way. But when the U.S. came in, they did get defeated. And that was their entrance was contingent upon England handing over Israel to the Zionists, and thereby dragging the U.S. into the war. So that was the promise, apparently. Now, what were the other elements you asked about?
The CIA, which was obviously founded in 47, and then the State of Israel in 49.
1913, so was the income tax instituted in 1913. I'd say 1913 marked the moment in which the bankers took over the United States and began to run its business because too few people understood, or maybe they didn't care, that once you have a bank issuing your currency or controlling your currency, and a private bank controlling your currency, that you lost control of the country. That's what happens because they start to then control policy, because that's where the money comes from. That's one of the reasons that the Fed is such a pernicious institution. It's not just that it inflates the value of our money on a daily basis regularly. It's that it controls the policies of the country because they have the purse strings. So I mean, an intermediate solution is to actually have the government itself control the currency, to have a national bank, but because the Fed is not a national bank, it's a private cartel. But that's an intermediate step. The ultimate step is to have private currencies on the market and to have a complete free market in the currency that should have in every other commodity. It's the most important commodity because it's the only commodity involved in every transaction, typically, unless you barter. But even barter is premised on the value of the currency. So that's how those connect. And I think the institution of the income tax in the same year is not coincidental. They arrived at the same time, and I think it's on the same basis because they knew now that there would be inflation, and so they knew that given a government that was controlled by banks, and given the kind of spending that they would encourage in order to further indebt the country to the bank, they would need an income tax in order to defer, to recoup the costs. So they knew they needed to rob the American citizens. Hey, so that's my reading of it.
That's a pretty good history lesson right there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little right now I've been even though I'm reading up pretty much. I just sent my 13th book to a publisher today, and that'll be coming out in probably 6 months. I have to do a lot of reviews. It's an academic book, and I just finished it. It's 510 pages, and it is on.
Scribble it on out. 510 pages.
Yeah,
throw that out there.
It's on 19th century British knowledge politics, history of science. It's history of science, but it's really knowledge politics and the politics that went on to determine what was called science and what would be, and how they would drive other things out. And what else am I going to say about it? So now I'm thinking, when I recuperate, I want to start a book on. I'm starting to think that even things like Darwin's theory of evolution, Marxist, that's scientific materialism, which comes out of the mid to late 19th century, takes over, knocks natural theology out of the game. Historical materialism with Marx, same time period exactly. I'm starting to think these were a conspiracy, totally foisted on us. That Darwinism is a total conspiracy theory. In fact, not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy to debunk God in order to demote humans to elevate themselves as the all-powerful social engineers. Once you debunk God, then you can assume that position. So it was really necessary to make people believe that they were nothing but material beings, that they came from animals, that they derived from a single-celled organism, which is so ludicrous. Listen, I mean, think about this. How could a single-celled organism evolve instantly? It has a lifespan of, say, days, okay?
Mm-hmm.
How did it, in the span of this time, also acquire the ability to reproduce itself? It's impossible. I mean, there's no
With the-
possibility that this is true. Evolution
It's
is
a, yeah.
the scams that have been pulled over our eyes. Interestingly, in this book that I just finished, it's all about this and how it gained ascendancy over this period. But now, the next thing I'm going to show that this is a conspiracy. I think it was engineered probably through. Strangely enough, like Darwin's grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, who he also was an evolutionary theorist, and he put out a theory 65 years before his grandson. And he was a Mason, a Freemason. I think this has something to do with Freemasonry and the Illuminati. I swear to God. I know that sounds rabbit hole shit, but I have
You're not wrong.
bonus feeds and scholarship, real solid sourcing and stuff. So I'm entitled to going out on a limb with this shit, and I'm going to.
I mean, there's not a whole lot we know about the Freemasons, honestly. I mean, it gets once you get high, everything disappears. I mean, so it would make a lot of sense that there's some Freemason shenanigans, and
Yeah.
the fact that the United States was founded by Freemasons.
Or else. Yes, that's correct. Or else.
I mean, I would have to argue that going through history, that whole adage of in order to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs.
Mhm.
Like these are the moments where these eggs are being broken to make these, I don't know, visionary societies of sorts, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm curious.
The social engineers.
Foundational myth.
Is that?
Foundational myth.
Yes. Exactly. They have to have that. They have to have a foundational myth in order to gain ascendancy and power things. And I started thinking that maybe Darwinism, rather than a description of reality, was actually a prescription for it. In other words, they were actually, it was a normative thing. It was a prescribing. It's social engineering at base. They're describing the world that they're making, rather than the world as it is, so that they will, have created a struggle for existence, which was the phrase that Darwin actually used. Not survival of the fittest. That was Herbert Spencer. It was picked up by the 5th edition of the Origin of Species. But I think that they actually, it was a prescription to create a society in which a struggle for existence was the main motif, the main ethos. So, because I don't believe that cooperative capitalism is actually is dog eat dog. It is not. I don't believe free markets are actually competitive in the sense of, as Darwin figures evolution, where there is absolute losers who must die, right? That's what, in order for the survivors to thrive, you have to have losers. So I think that's not a fair characterization of the marketplace in which when people exchange and do things cooperatively with each other, everybody gains at the same time, right? So if you buy something, it's not in a free market, you're not being ripped off. Or if you're paid for doing some sort of work, that's not being ripped off. You're actually exchanging something. You want something more than that person wants it, and they want something from you more than you want it. That's really how simple it is. But that's not. I don't know if I'm going off the tangent. I've been doing a lot of reading, so I'm pretty much bed bound. So I've been doing a lot of deep dives. So if I'm coming off a little bit crazy, sorry.
Well, you are welcome anytime. If you ever feel like relaxing and chatting, man. I mean, we put this up anytime. So
Yeah,
we're grateful for your mind. Like we brought this up. Like I said, Chase Oliver posted something, and this is about your health and well-being, and we need you here so we can add to the collective of ideas.
I wanted to say something about Chase Oliver. I thank him very much. As I've tried to make manifest to him throughout the whole campaign, I didn't have anything against him personally at all. In fact, I think he's a nice guy. I got along with him, and I tried to get him to open up a little more. He's a little bit tight, lipped, a little more guarded than me probably. But I tried to get him to open up. I tried to explain to him that, listen, I'm not your mortal enemy here. I'm not some Mises caucus goon sent out to like hatchet you. I'm actually a person just like you are, and I thought he was a nice guy, and I never had any qualms with him as a person at all. In fact, I like him. I did have political, I do, and did, and still do have political disagreements with him that are pretty strong. But that doesn't mean that I consider him like a mortal enemy. I always said he was a nice guy. I never said anything else. I might have called him a fag once, but hey, what are you gonna do? And I don't agree with trans and children. He doesn't go for he doesn't go for the angioplasty the other, but he does go for the trans stuff. Should be okay.
And to that point, like I said, we Zach and I jumped on Jeremiah and Cap Air's podcast or Spaces yesterday, and they have clear differences with your opinions, but they wish nothing but the best. They
Yeah.
reposted your Give Send Go, and everyone wants this because this is the diversity that we need.
Yeah.
This is the inclusion that we need. This is the equity that we
Real
need.
diversity.
We need every idea out there, and we got to hash them all out.
Yeah, man, that's right. I always said that. That was the problem with academia. It was like they kept talking about diversity, but it was only phenotypical diversity, not anything else. Like diversity of appearance. That's the flimsiest, most shallow kind of diversity there is. How about diversity of thought? How about diversity of persons? How about different types of individuals? How about a welcoming different perspectives? That was more important because the other characteristics are unavoidable mostly. You can't decide to be black or white or Jewish or anything. So those are already determined for you somehow. So the real differences that are interesting are not those. Those are not interesting at all. Those are boring. And I never looked at anybody other than as an individual when I meet an actual individual. Well, that's not to say that there aren't groups that act in a collective manner. And we see this with gangs, and we see this with other kinds of groups that act collectively. Just to notice that doesn't make you neglect them.
Cooperation. Community cooperation. I love it. That's what we need in today's world. We need discourse. Yeah, that's what we're missing. Big time is discourse.
And to your point, it's beautiful too, because like we do have this, but we do need to point our cannons in the same direction. Right? Like we're pointing them at each other in a lot of ways, and we just got to start pointing them at the actual people. But that's where Jeremiah kind of mentioned yesterday, the coalition, like it is collaborative. I mean, the ideas cannot die if they're shared. Good ideas always end up in the ether, right? So we just have to put them out there.
Yeah, the enemy is the state, right? But the state is just a tool in the hands of the ruling class. It's just their weapon. So the only thing we can really do is disarm them. Yeah, the only thing WW1 never end, or we're still living in a war with some different levels of static battles. And the Stalin alignment was temporary thoughts. World War One, of course, called the Great War at the time because they didn't anticipate the series of them. So they called it the Great War. Yeah, I mean, no, I think it just shifted. It didn't end. It just shifted the theaters. You know, they didn't really end it, and I think it kept going on purpose. Uh, the powers that be in banks and in the state, they gain from a war, so they have a direct, vested interest in keeping it going. Um, of course, they do have also a vested interest in getting rid of certain types of players from the field. So that's why you see the hatred towards Russia. There's no question that Russia represents a real threat to the ruling establishment. Um, Now, Russia has also its own authoritarian character. Just to leave that out of the question as well. Nevertheless, Russia represents a real threat, and that's why they have had their guns pointed at it for so long. And we talk about the other theaters as well.
So
But, no, I think
if I
it's still going on. Was it temporary? I get you. It seems that up until the present, the alignment has continued in some sense. But I'm unclear about whether we've gotten to the bottom of it and whether the alignment with this order has been broken up yet or not. And that is to say, alignment was strong, we'll say, alignment to supposedly defeat the common enemy in Nazis. But the communism that was defeated in the Cold War supposedly really wasn't defeated. The Cold War was another scam altogether. It was a total scam. The Cold War was largely, the United States was funding both sides. If you read Anthony C. Sutton, you see this: the United States actually funding the Soviet Union as the weapons that they're giving them. The technology to build weapons that are actually used against American soldiers in Vietnam. This is unbelievable. So the war was a scam. It was just a way for the powers of the state in both places to build up enormous power, centralized power, and to dictate, and therefore to have more control over their own citizens. So the Cold War was a big joke. It wasn't a joke for the people living through it. We're still, in effect, moving through it in a way because we still have the nuclear threat that it produced.
Yeah. So I would argue World War I, how that was treated with the Treaty of Versailles was an affront to Germany, whose blowback was the creation of Hitler and the rise of Hitler and nationalism. The refusal to give back Danzig by Churchill was another slap in the face, which really accelerated and exacerbated some things. Very akin to the land grab that Putin's going after, a specific area to connect to his port that he's been leasing from the Ukrainians for 75 years or whatever. It's like, okay, whatever. So like these things do seem to continue, and it is funded, right? Eisenhower spoke of the military industrial complex and all these other things as well.
Yeah.
And build.
Go ahead, Rick.
What happened to that question? It disappeared.
All right, so I lost you there for a second, but we've got Justin back in. Now, Justin is similar to myself. Rack was a little conservative, right wing, I would say Republican, neoconish, like I was at one point, and we're starting to dig at him a little bit. We're picking at his scabs a little bit. We're getting him to wake, to shaking baby syndrome. And he's a brilliant man, and he has great ideas, and his ideas are still sound. We just have to kind of orient. So he asked about the U.S. Constitution from a libertarian perspective. Feel free to answer the question as asked.
Yeah. Well, I'm with your other. What is your name, by the way? The guy in the red shirt. I'm sorry, I just don't know.
Oh, I'm Zach. I'm Zach, and down there below me is Andrew.
Okay,
So,
I'm with you, but I'm a Lysander Spooner fanatic. So the
oh,
Constitution, nobody ever signed, and it was the beginning of the end. Okay, not the scam that was pulled over on the population, create a central government. It was not signed by anybody but a few people, and it wasn't agreed to by anybody else. And likewise, it's not binding in a way. It's not legitimate anyway. It's binding, but only by force, right? Um,
It's a,
I don't think that our freedoms and our rights are premised on the Constitution. We didn't need a bunch of people in the state to tell us what our rights are. I mean, where did this shit come from? All of a sudden, I need you to give me 10 articles, amendments, by the way, to the Constitution. We'll get a little appendage we'll throw on there, your rights. Give me a fucking break. I mean, my rights don't come from that document at all. They come from my intrinsic being. They're not about the Constitution. I don't need the Constitution to tell me what I can and can't do. It's all written in the code of my being in our social and in connection with other people in the social order. There's nothing I need in the Constitution. It's not lacking. It is vastly overstepping. Now that being said, it is still a useful tool to use against tyrants because whenever they try to abrogate something, you can say, well, what about this? What about this? This is what you vowed to uphold and defend. What about this? You're abrogating. You're violating this document that you said was binding on you. So even though I think it's a scam, it's still a tool that we can use politically to keep tyrants at bay as much as possible. So, yeah.
how
it's
very
certainly a blanket
Jeffersonian.
statement.
What's that?
I said it's certainly a blanket statement.
Yeah. What do you mean?
I find it interesting because I guess that was part of the evolution for me too, right? Is like I'm Republican, so I believe in the Bill of Rights. I'm a constitution, but then you become this constitutionalist. And I met Randall Terry. He ran for president, I think, for the Constitution Party. Interesting guy, but he's more like a Reaganite than he is a constitution. I mean, he's a little hawkish for a constitutionalist, right? Like it's a little odd. So, but you see how these things Venn diagram and crisscross over, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
the idea, each idea matters. Like I don't need to subscribe to these four ideas because I'm on this side. I can be pro this and anti that and semi this and not so much that, or it's just so odd. And even Washington warned of it, right? He talks about the party system and becoming binary and only these two things. And then he talks like government is not eloquence. Government is force. Government is force. He knew it from the day one. He did not want to be king. It's pretty impressive that some of these people had the ideas. It is great that it was at least the first time it was written down and addressed in a weird way, but that it has to be is really where we're at now. It's like that it had to be written down
Yeah,
because these are our birthrights. They are human natural rights. They are not
right.
written to us. To your
Yeah, if they're not given, why did it take them to write? So I think they precede. People might ask, your rights precede the Constitution. By obviously it's in the Constitution says that actually. So the Constitution itself says there's a preceding. Uh, there's a preceding right. Your rights precede the existence of this very document. Yeah, the Constitution. It's not something we agree to, but it is something we can definitely use when necessary.
And that's essentially what Spooner was doing. He was using it as a tool when he was critiquing it, showing why it's so wrong and why it's so worthless. But at the same time, you can use it.
Yeah.
And Jefferson actually understood that too. When I mean, because once he became the third president, when he was elected president, he used it as a moderator tool, and he overstepped a little bit here and there. He probably was the first one to start the endless war scheme with the undeclared wars, but we'll forgive him. But at the same time, he utilized it as a means of a moderator's tool.
Yeah.
So then you could have fast forward, you have Andrew Jackson using it as a moderator's tool to eliminate the second bank and make sure that it doesn't get renewed. Of course, there's issues with Jackson as well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you gentlemen would recommend then Spooner to address the question on the Constitution, any of the Constitution question?
yes.
Constitution.
Check out Spooner, Justin. Lysander Spooner.
That's the link. Um,
So Doc Rack, we got a little more time here. Let's get to know you a little bit for people who don't know you.
Yeah.
You were with this group called at least you were with this group called the Mises Caucus, which brought you to prominence within the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak a little bit about, is this Spooner?
Yes.
It is. Vices are
Okay,
I'm just
of
showing
vindication for moral liberty.
so,
Oh, there it
and
is.
for
Check
some
it out.
spirituality. So,
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. So we'll go from Spooner to Mises only because that's the caucus that you represented that came to prominence. Tell us a little bit about Mises and his perspective on libertarian ideas.
Ludwig von Mises or the caucus? Mises was a, he did some brilliant economic work. Some of the main things that he did, this is what we're talking about, Ludwig, in his work. Some of the main things he did was to show that the economic behavior was part of a bigger, more broad set of behaviors called that he named. He called it was human action was the broader category. So economics just fits in with this broader category of human action, and then he described the science or a set of principles on standard called praxology. This was major. Then, of course, also he developed he took on the socialist question with the calculation problem. The calculation problem showed that socialism was impossible. It can't be established because without prices you cannot allocate goods rationally, and likewise you'll have complete lunacy and chaos. So those were in my mind, his major contributions.
Yeah. So that's Mises. Now, once again, you've got a little bit more of a brand new audience because like we've crossed over and doing some live stuff. You were a Marxist.
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you, commie pinko lefty bastard? How did that come to be? Because you're an intellect. Did the intellect start? Is that how he got corrupted?
hold up. We have a Marxist and a Nazi in here.
Now, which one's worse? That's the question.
Exactly.
Nazi and Marxist walk into a bar.
Well,
and they become libertarian.
I have an opinion about that. Let me just say this. Which one? I'll talk about which one's worse after this. Let me say first that yes, I got appealed to on the intellectual basis by Marxism. I was not a Marxist until I went to graduate school. I had some, I had bumped up against it before that a little bit, and basically dismissed it. I didn't care about that. But I thought it was, first of all, they kept valorizing the working class. And like I said, I don't want to be in the working class. So don't, I don't want to valorize. I was in the working class. That's where I came from. I was trying to get out. Okay. So this whole valorization of the working class, it just, I was like, I don't want that. But then I went to graduate school and I thought I just wanted to be a professor in English. And I ended up getting introduced to Marxism amongst other theories, all kinds of post-modern theory and feminism and so forth. So, but Marxism was the one that attracted me most. And mostly, as you said, it was good intellectual grist. It was good for the good grist for the grinding. And but also there was also like it was kind of an implicit message was given you as a graduate student. You had no future in this field if you weren't a leftist of some sort or another. Getting that implicit message, it was very clear that you couldn't be like right wing or right wing libertarians. You wouldn't be allowed there. They'd throw you out. They did throw people out for things like that. I saw it about graduate students being dismissed from the program because they were not leftists. Well, and I really wanted that kind of life. That seemed to be the best path. So I ended up embracing Marxism, and I thought it was the more ethical system because I thought, like Marx did, like he proclaimed, that capitalism was inherently exploitative, and that the worker was exploited at the point of production every day, every minute of every day. I thought that was wrong. And I thought that that had to be overthrown. I just got the wrong information. When I come to it now, I realize I still have a class theory of society. I just don't think that the classes are what they were portrayed as in Marxism. As a matter of fact, Marxism portrays the capitalist class as the enemy, and the way of combating it is through the state. So Marxism actually contributes to the class, to the ruling class. That's the irony of all irony. Marxism contributes to the power ideologically and narratively wise. Ideologically, politically, it contributes to the power of the actual ruling class, which is the state. And the state and its beneficiaries and accomplices, that's the ruling class. So I still have a class theory of society. I'm still a radical. I was a radical then. I'm just a more, I'm a corrected radical. I'm one that's right. I think that the other form of radicalism is grossly mistaken, and that it is actually dangerous. It's dangerous, and it contributes to the very oppression. It contributes to oppression. I mean, there's no other entity on earth that can take, well, other than straight up thieves, on the street or through some shenanigans in business. But nobody else can legitimately rob from you. Period. Who else can take your money without an agreement? Who? Nothing but the state. The state is the only entity that can take your wealth without any agreement. No exchange, nothing. You force them into a contract with them at the point of a gun.
Want to say something, Zach?
So that's how I got out of Marxism. It wasn't that simple. It was instant, but then how I got to the position I have now wasn't exactly just easy. There was some stages along the line. I had to go through this whole first asserting, basic civil libertarian rights, basically individual rights of ownership of my body and my mind and my mouth, and whatever I want to say. So first I had to understand civil libertarianism, but then I got into economic libertarianism, and I got to political libertarianism, then I got to anarchism, anarcho-capitalism. So, yeah. So, and I came all the way from Marxism to get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long trek. But I always do things
It is.
Mark.
It is.
And it's funny. I always think of Michael Malice. Like we talk about a couple of Michael Malice points. Like smartest dogs are the easiest to train.
Yeah.
And that midwit intellectual, and I am only guilty of it because I know your intellect. I can tell it's above mine for sure. I'm reaching, but I'm still in that midwit level. I could be so easily coerced to buy my own bullshit if it was wrapped smart enough.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the other thing is that, like, for example, in Europe, from roughly 1917, especially around like the 1920s through 1970s, the only real reputable intellectual position to hold in Europe, all of Europe, was Marxist ideology. All of Europe. Anybody that wasn't a Marxist was held in disrepute. So then they managed to export that to all of intellectual class, so that you thought that if you weren't a Marxist, there was something deficient about you. That's what they suggested. So this became like you had to buy if you wanted anything else. If you wanted to be regarded in any way as a positive thing, like a thinker worth listening to. That's what they did. So I bought into it, and get out. I mean, it took shock. It took like a trauma. Really.
That is what is interesting about Marxist thought and where it certainly gravitates towards. It's like the whole broad stroke of it is embraced by the intellectual, like high society class, but they wrap it around like it's this fight for the working class against the state. And I mean, you can kind of tell, like, wait a second, are we really fighting the system here? Like,
Yes.
why is the focus the intellectuals?
Yes, that's right. So what it does then?
Because the stupid people can't rule themselves, silly. Duh.
Exactly.
Let them eat cake.
And then there's the people
If they can find it.
elite, right? So that are coming from different stations. So they try to emulate the thinking of the elite. Okay, this is how it works. This is how they attract people into their regions. They get you to emulate their thought, their thinking. And they use flattery also to induce you to accept it. Okay. So if you think the right things, they'll flatter you to death. Okay. But if you think the wrong things, they will shame you to shit. So one day I woke up in New York, and I thought to myself, I got out of bed, I took a shower, and I thought to myself, if I start saying what I think, all hell is gonna break loose at this university. And I did. Then I said those things, and all hell broke loose indeed. So those things were exactly what Jonathan was saying. Is that I started to see that the ideology that I would embrace is actually the ideology of the whole class, and that they were oppressors. And when I spoke up, they crushed me. They tried to crush me. And when I said things that they didn't agree with, they really went after me. So it showed me that I hit the central power line.
So, well, gentlemen, we've been at this for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Zach and I didn't even plan this. We jumped on 3 minutes ahead. We're like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. 2.5 hours later, guys. That's what ideas do.
All right.
Dr.
Exactly.
Rectenwald, thank you for joining us. Everyone share your stuff. I'm going to hit mute for a bit, but everyone talk a little bit about yourself. Share how we can see everybody. Make sure to get that give, send, go back out there, and we will say goodbye to everyone.
I think Andrew should start.
Well, I'm not too terribly active on social media, but you can find me on Next at AI90. Just hit me up, send me a message. I'll do what I can to help you. Zach.
Check us out, the Legacy, right? And check out the League of the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. I think we're gonna do we got one coming
Once a
up
month?
actually.
Yeah,
Once
we
a
do. I think
month.
next
So
2 Thursdays from now, I think
In
we'll
2
be doing the League of
Thursdays,
Ordinary Ordinary. The
so
League of
so
Ordinary
check
Gentlemen.
so check
All
that
right,
out,
Rex.
and check out the Legacy, right?
The Legacy Right with Andrew and Zach, with Zach and Andrew, and Dr. Rack. Thank you so much for joining us. We
Yes.
wish you the best. We wish you, please keep us updated. Any way we can just share the message. We're just happy that we're able to even do this with this technology we have. Hopefully some people were able to donate some money. We had 74 viewers right now. So thank you for everyone who joined us. And let's close it out, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this, guys. I really appreciate it. Everybody that came to watch, whether to enjoy or virtual, it's fine. I love it. Thanks for being there. All friends here. You can follow me on Twitter at RectorRegime, and then I have a Substack, which I'll, trying to put some things out. It's mrectorwald.substack.com. Just something, or just look for Rect, R-E-K-T. That's my Substack. My new work is coming out, and I have no podcast. I don't do podcasts. It's on my work day. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for coming, for showing your face.
Thank
you. So,
it was great. It
was a great,
very pleasant surprise. We
Yeah,
didn't.
it
Andrew
was.
was a surprise. Andrew was a
Andrew-
surprise. It was all great. Thank you,
surprises
everyone who
all around.
joined us. Thank you again.
Hey,
We do have the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. I think in 2 weeks we'll keep everyone posted there. Next week, guys, drop the mask. Jason and I are doing another Consciously Unmasked, I think. And we've got the book. We've got the Scott Horton Provoked. Week 6 is coming up on Monday. Man, we got 3 more episodes of that, and it's getting up to the end where Ukraine and Russia are starting to get mad at each other again. It's pretty amazing. Gentlemen, Zach, thank you so much for doing this with me, man. You were dedicated the whole time. Andrew, thank you for surprising us. Dr. Reck, thanks for joining us. Everyone go to the Give, Send, Go. Thank you again. I'm going to hit end stream here, guys, but let's stay on for after that. Everyone check the Give, Send, Go. Give, Send, Go. Give, Send, Go. All right, I got to hit end here.